The air in the diner turned to static, thick with the scent of burnt beans and impending violence. Wendy Midgley didn't tremble as she held the Glock 19 in a perfect, two-handed extension. Her white button-up remained crisp, her posture a stark contrast to the chaos of overturned chairs behind her. Across the Formica counter, Park Jae-shin didn't move. The Dragon of Soul simply leaned forward, his tailored silk suit catching the fluorescent hum of the flickering neon. His fingers, laced with dark ink that crawled up his throat, were clasped in a gesture of mock prayer. He wasn't looking at the barrel leveled at his forehead. He was looking at her eyes, searching for the flicker of fear that never came. A smirk tugged at his lips, sharp and predatory. Most people drop the tray before they drop the hammer. Wendy, he purred, his voice a low vibration that skipped across the chrome details of the counter. Wendy's finger tightened on the trigger, her gaze as cold as the winter rain drumming against the glass. "I'm not most people, and this isn't a negotiation," she whispered, her voice a lethal silk. "Man, don't dare me." The neon sign outside Sal's relic buzzed with the rhythmic, irritating hum of a dying insect, casting flickering shadows of pink and blue across the cracked linoleum. For Wendy Midgley, this was the sound of safety. Here, amidst the smell of burnt grease and industrial cleaner, she was invisible, a ghost in a white button-up shirt. She lived her life in the margins, moving with a practiced, quiet efficiency that never drew an eye. She wiped the counter for the 50th time, her mind drifting to her textbooks and the cat waiting in her cramped apartment, far from the echoes of the tactical training that still haunted her dreams. Then the peace shattered. The bell above the door didn't just chime. It gave a heavy, ominous clank, as if the door itself had been forced open by a sudden change in atmospheric pressure. The casual chatter of the two truckers at the end of the bar died instantly. A chill swept in from the street, and with it came Park Jae-shin. He stepped into the diner like he owned the ground beneath it, his presence a sharp, jagged blade cutting through the grime of the room. The quiet life Winnie had fought so hard to build didn't just end. It evaporated. Jae-shin slid onto a cracked vinyl stool, his movements fluid and arrogant. He didn't look at the menu. He looked at Wendy, his eyes tracing the steady line of her shoulders. With a flick of a silver lighter, he sparked a cigarette, the flame illuminating the jagged tattoos on his neck. The smoke curled toward the no smoking sign, a deliberate challenge in the quiet diner. "You're late with the water, Wendy," he said, his voice a smooth caress of silk and gravel. Wendy didn't blink. She didn't reach for the glass. Instead, her hand moved toward the metal pull tab tucked discreetly behind the counter. Her eyes locked onto his in a cold, espresso dark stare. "That suit looks like it costs more than I make in a year, Mr. Park," she said, her voice dropping to a lethal, quiet register. "It will be a shame to see it ruined. I pull this, the industrial sprinkler's trigger, and you'll be soaked in stagnant water and chemical foam before you can finish that drag. I don't like messes in my diner. Put it out. I'll do it for you." The standoff snapped when one of Jae-shin's enforcers, a man with a jagged scar and a lack of patience, lunged across the counter. He reached for Wendy's throat, intending to silence the woman who dared threaten his boss. He was fast, but Wendy was a blur of practiced, lethal efficiency. Before he could make contact, her hand shot out, seizing a heavy, unopened glass bottle of sparkling water. With a sickening crunch, she slammed the base of the bottle down, pinning the man's palm flat against the hard formica. The enforcer let out a strangled cry as the weight of the glass and the precision of the strike trapped him. When he didn't recoil, she leaned into his space, her face inches from his. Her eyes weren't those of a waitress anymore. They were cold, empty, and terrifyingly focused. It was the reflex of a ghost, a movement born of 1,000 hours in a training facility most people didn't know existed. Jae-shin watched, his smirk widening. He didn't order his men to intervene. He simply stared at Wendy's hands, recognizing the grip of a professional killer hidden beneath the skin of a common server. After the diner cleared, the silence felt heavier than the screams had. Wendy retreated to the cramped employee restroom, the fluorescent light flickering like a strobe. Her hands, steady during the confrontation, now buzzed with a frantic, electric energy. She reached into the vent above the sink, pulling out a vacuum seal burner phone she hadn't touched in 3 years. The screen's glow was a ghostly green against her skin. She dialed a number burned in her memory, one that didn't exist on any official record. When the line picked up, there was no greeting, only the hollow sound of breathing. "The shadow has been stepped on," Wendy said, her voice dropping into a register of cold command she had tried to bury. "Jae-shin knows. My cover is ash. Extraction is ready." The voice crackled, ancient and raspy. "We can erase you again." Wendy looked at her reflection, the white shirt stained with coffee and the shadow of the woman she was supposed to be. "No," she whispered, her eyes hardening into flint. "I'm done running. Tell them the ghost daughter is staying to finish this. Don't dare me to come home." The calm shattered as a hail of high-caliber rounds shredded the front windows, turning the retro glass into a storm of diamond-sharp shards. The scent of gunpowder instantly choked out the aroma of cherry pie. When he didn't scream, she moved. With a fluid, explosive vault, she cleared the counter, her white shirt a blur against the red stools. She tackled Jae-shin just as a bullet sparked off the chrome beside his head. "Stay down," she hissed, pinning the stunned boss to the floor. In one motion, she drew her concealed weapon, her eyes tracking the muzzle flashes with predatory precision. The penthouse was a fortress of glass and cold steel, overlooking a city that bled light. Inside the silence, Wendy stripped away her blood-stained shirt, revealing the map of jagged white scars across her back, souvenirs from a life she'd tried to bury. Jae-shin watched from the shadows, his eyes dark with a new, dangerous respect. He reached out, his tattooed hand hovering near her skin. "The daughter of a ghost," he murmured, the amusement gone. When he didn't flinch, she turned, her gaze meeting his with equal hunger. They weren't victim and protector. They were two predators realizing the cage was finally open. Wendy stood before Jae-shin's inner circle, her eyes scanning them like a predator reading the wind. She didn't look at their guns. She looked at their eyes and the subtle tremor of their jawlines. Her gaze settled on Polly, the youngest lieutenant. While the others radiated righteous fury, Polly's pupils were pinpricks, and his gaze flickered toward the door every 3 seconds. A classic flight micro-expression. Then she saw it. The damp, red clay clinging to his expensive loafers. "The diner hit was organized from the old brickyard," she whispered. Polly paled. The mole had been found. The shipyard was a graveyard of rusted iron and salt-choked fog. High atop a crane skeleton, Wendy lay prone, the cold steel of a Macmillan TC-50 fused to her shoulder. Below, the rival syndicate moved like ants, confident in their numbers. Through the high-powered scope, the world slowed to the rhythm of her heartbeat. She pulled a trigger, and the night exhaled lead. Each thunderous crack sent a message across the docks. The ghost hadn't died. He had simply evolved. As bodies fell in the mist, the underworld finally remembered the terror of a perfect shot. 3 months later, Sal's diner was pristine, the neon humming with a sharp, steady power. Winnie walked the floor in a silk blazer, her apron retired, but her authority absolute. When 2 rival enforcers entered, sizing up the room with predatory grins, Winnie didn't call for security. She simply leaned over their table, her eyes reflecting the cold steel of the city she now co-ruled. "You're in dragon territory," she whispered, the air chilling at her touch. "Pay your tab and leave before I lose my patience." As they recoiled, she smiled. "Man, don't dare me."